It took me a while, but I've finally discovered what's wrong with women. Men, no doubt about it, men are the problem. As I sit here in this bus stop shelter, smelling the leftover piss from the derelicts that sleep here when no one is around, I can see all of my mistakes, and they're crystal clear in the rear-view mirror of my mind. I've got about an hour, so I can tell you about this chunk of my life. My life isn't exactly going the way I'd hoped. In fact, right now, it's an absolute disaster. I've been forced to take a long, hard look at the way I live and treat people. But I'm still relatively young, so I can come back from this. My biggest mistake was in believing that men would do the right thing. Neither of the men involved in my story did the right thing. Truthfully, my idea of the right thing is whatever is best for me, but I guess neither of them realized that. My other mistake was in believing that other women would also act according to the rules and principles that I think keeps life organized. The other woman in the story was not supposed to just swoop in and grab my toys before I was done playing with them. So now I find myself taking this embarrassing bus ride back to my parents' house to try and rebuild my life in the hick town that I was so eager to escape from. I'm sure those small town tongues will be wagging when I get there. It will definitely not be the triumphant return that I expected, but it's not all my fault. I'm a victim of conditioning. People are supposed to act a certain way around me, and when they don't, I guess I don't make good decisions. Men have always told me the same stuff since I was a little girl. "Oh, Kathy, you're beautiful. I'd do anything for you." They call me Kathy because that's my name. I'm an apple in a world of pears, and that makes me stand out. Being an apple means that my chest are bigger than my ass. Don't kid yourself. Look around, there's lots of pears out there, but not too many apples. Anyway, my long, naturally straight blonde hair and crystal clear blue eyes don't hurt me much either. My daddy always said that I was destined to do great things and be a success in life. Throughout my life thus far, there has only been one boy for me, Rafe Jenkins. He was the cutest boy in my school, and therefore in town. I latched onto him in the first grade and just never let go. He wasn't as driven as I was, but he always played his part. When we got to high school and I became a cheerleader, he had to get on the football team or lose me. He didn't like football much, so I had to motivate him to excel. He was a running back, so I'd just tell him that when he got the ball that I'd stand under the goal posts, and anybody that stopped him from reaching me could take me out on a date. That lit a fire under him, because Rafe loved me, and he hated sharing. By our senior year, Rafe had more touchdowns than any other player in the school's history. He probably could have gone to college on a football scholarship, but that wasn't in my plans. Right out of high school, we got married and moved to California. Rafe was a very good carpenter, and he got a lot of jobs around the city, so he could put me through college. While there, I got my associate's degree in business and started working at the bank to gain experience. The first experience I gained was the fact that some of the people who worked in the bank spent more money in a week on lunch than we spent on rent. They wore beautiful clothes and drove expensive cars instead of pickup trucks. In short, they were living the life that I wanted. I'd spent a lot of time in school cultivating the correct image and losing my southern accent. Now was the time for me to make my mark. I started having Rafe drop me off a block away from the bank in the morning and pick me up a block away as well. That way no one would ever see me getting out of his old truck. Rafe was a good guy and I loved him in my own way, but there was no way I wanted anyone to see me in that truck. One of the officers at the bank took a liking to me and started helping me to develop into the person I wanted to be. I in turn helped him with a little problem he had whenever he was around me. It wasn't that big of a problem. His D just seemed to stand straight up whenever I was around. Like I said, it wasn't that big a problem since it was only about 4 inches long. I hardly even felt it when we had it, so I didn't really think of it as cheating. I knew that Rafe wouldn't see it that way, so I was careful that he never found out. Anyway, he started introducing me to the right kinds of people and finally introduced me to Smith Benson. Was that classy or what? The man has 2 last names. Even his first name is a last name. Anyway, Smith, that's his first name, fell for me in a big way. He was an account executive for an entertainment representation firm. They handled all kinds of stars and athletes in a number of fields. I didn't care which field it was as long as there weren't any crops growing in it. Smith drove a silver BMW. It was the most beautiful car I'd ever seen. He got me a job as his assistant, no more days as a bank teller for me. From the very start, I knew that Smith was interested in me. After all, he was a man. I watched his progress trying to get into my pants and realized that as rich and powerful as he was, or as I thought he was, that I had power over him. For the first few weeks, I kept everything above board and businesslike. But I had to be careful too, because if I made him wait too long, he'd replace me with someone who would give him what he wanted. I intended to give it to him too. I just wanted something in return. He took me to lunch in a different fancy restaurant every day. He got my hair done and even started to buy me clothes and things. I explained to Rafi that Smith was just trying to make sure that my clothes and manners didn't call adverse attention to me in the company we were keeping at work. Rafi, the jealous little boy that he was, had threatened to bust Smith's ass if he so much as laid a finger on me. I think he followed us a couple of times as we went to lunch, so I had to do something to get him off of our track. Rafi still didn't like the thought of sharing me with anybody else. Go figure. Smith and I had one of his mysterious clients coming in. She was an artist from France and had a big following all over the world. She was coming to the United States for the first time for a show. She was going to be here for a month before the show to finalize her new pieces. This presented an opportunity for us. I told Smith. "What's on your mind, Kathleen?" he asked. "Where is Amanda staying when she gets here?" I asked him in return. "We have an apartment/studio rented for her," he replied. "Do you have any carpentry work that needs to be done there?" I asked again. "Well, there are a few things that could be done." "Why?" he asked. "Because if you hired my husband to do it, we'd know exactly where he was and when, so we'd be able to be together without worrying about him finding us and busting your ass." So Smith called Rafi and had him come over for a meeting 2 days later. They worked out all of the details, and Smith gave Rafi the keys, and they shook hands as Rafi left. Smith then came over to me and told me to pay him for hiring Rafi. I knew exactly what he wanted, because his payments usually involved my two friends, Neil and Bob. Everything should have been perfect. Smith had gotten us a room at a motel clear across town from the apartment complex Rafi was working at. What was Rafi doing near the motel? You can train a puppy not to shit on your rugs, but you can't train a man to do anything. Rafi was driving past the motel because the motel happened to be located near the only fucking Burger Queen restaurant in town. When he saw Smith's BMW, he waited outside the motel and saw us coming out. Of course, Smith and I didn't know Rafi had seen us. We thought we had gotten away with it. Smith was happy, and I was disappointed but happy as well. I was disappointed because by now I had cheated on Rafi with two big city types, and neither one of them had any idea that they hadn't rung my bell. Thing with Smith was every bit as boring as with Mr. 4-Inch Jones at the bank. At least I could have my cake and eat it too. I could let Smith warm me up whenever we got together, then go home and let Rafi F the living out of me. Rafi. I couldn't believe that I saw Kathy coming out of a motel with that slimy-ass boss of hers. I guess she was just too fancy for me now. She had been spending so much time with Al of her big city cohorts that she was just too sophisticated for a country boy. Well, if that's what she wants, she's welcome to it. I won't bother her. I called a friend of mine back home, and he said I should call a lawyer about a divorce, so that's what I did. It's going to be kind of expensive, so I'm going to have to keep working. It's like that joke from the Dukes of Hazzard movie. Why are divorces so expensive? Because they're worth it. The lawyer had set me up with a private investigator to get evidence to prove my claim. He also told me that since we had no kids and were both working, that if I could prove infidelity, I wouldn't have to pay Kathy any kind of alimony or support. That's what I wanted, just to be free of her. At the same time, I still loved her so much. I just couldn't imagine why she would do this to me. Yeah, I could. Why should I lie to myself? From the first grade, me and Kathy had both been in love with the same person, her. We always did what she wanted. Only this time I guess what she wants, she needs someone else to help her get. I drove over to the apartment that I was supposed to be working in. I hoped that they'd have a microwave there so I could warm up my food from Burger Queen. This should be an easy job, but it would be time-consuming. I had to build a series of easels and stands in different rooms of the apartment and a few on the deck out back. This was so the person that was going to live here could paint or do whatever they did, wherever they wanted. I was also supposed to look around the place to see if anything needed to be repaired. If I could do the repairs, I was supposed to do them and bill Slimy Smith for the work. If it was outside of my capabilities or comfort zone, I was to notify Smith so he could have it done before his client arrived. As I opened the door, I noticed that it squeaked and kind of stuck when I tried to open it. I'd put that on the bill and charged Slimy Smith $50 for a shot of WD-40. In the kitchen, among all of the state-of-the-art appliances, I found a microwave. It was a really nice one too. As my burgers were heating up, I sat down at the table in the breakfast nook. I started thinking about Kathy again. There was no way I wanted to stay married to her. She was a... Try as I might, even now I couldn't think of anything bad to call her. I guess I wasn't wired that way. I was pulled from my revelry by a sound. I wasn't quite sure I'd heard it, maybe I imagined it. But it sounded as though someone had gone up the back stairway really quietly, like they were only wearing socks. I probably did imagine it. I ate my burgers while the smell of charcoal grilled beef permeated the apartment. I measured all of the open walls in the rooms that I was told to put the easels in. I had a better idea in a couple of the rooms. It made more sense to build racks in front of the walls. Once I had all of the measurements done for the interior, I looked at the outside. I had an idea here too. I thought I'd build the easel out here inside of an enclosure so that wind or rain or dust wouldn't damage any pictures or whatever was going on. After that, I cleaned up my mess and went home. Kathy was there already. She was wearing one of those slinky night sets that she liked to lounge around in. I remember when she used to look just as good, if not better, in one of my old shirts or t-shirts. But she was too sophisticated for that now. She came over towards me, and I pretended to have to put my tool belt away as she reached for a hug. "Rafi, did you eat yet, hon?" I wondered why the hell she was asking me that. She can't cook, and I don't smell any food that she brought in. What if I was hungry? Was she just going to pull my dinner out of her ass? "Yep," I said. "I had burgers." I guess I was hoping that she'd remember that I only liked burgers from one place. She knew that even though there was a McClowney's restaurant on every corner, I only liked Burger Queen. The only one in town was right near the motel she'd spent part of her afternoon in. "Well, good," she said. "Maybe we can spend some quality time together then." I noticed two things right off the bat. The first was that her fake city accent was gone, and she was talking like she did when we first got here 3 years ago. That meant that she wanted something. The second was that she smelled like she'd just taken a shower and cleaned herself up. Getting rid of the evidence, I guessed. She'd just been out old slimy Smith. Did she really need even more S? Or was this just her way of fooling me into thinking that nothing was going on? I'm not as sophisticated as Kathy and Smith, but that doesn't mean I'm stupid. I could have gone to college. I did have a lot of scholarship offers, and my grades were better than Kathy's. But when we got here, I had to make the money so she could go to school. She sashayed over to the bedroom door and just leaned in the doorway. I guess I was supposed to trip over my D running after her. I just played it cool instead. I spread out my measurements on the kitchen table and pretended to go over them. "Sweetheart, I have to make sure that all of my figures are correct for this job," I said. "If I do anything wrong, it would reflect badly on you, to your boss. And we wouldn't want that, now would we?" I asked. "I'll be in soon," I said. She pouted, but she went on into the bedroom anyway. She wasn't used to not getting her way, but soon enough she'd be able to do things any way she wanted because I'd be gone. My heart ached, but I knew this was the right thing to do. My daddy had always told me that when you're in a bad situation, the right thing to do was usually the one that hurt the most. Kathy. I couldn't believe that my Rafi was making me wait to have S. He should have jumped in here at the first glance. Normally, as soon as he came through the door, he was looking at me like a stallion in heat. And now not only was he not all over me, he was making me wait. Smith, and every other man I know, would do anything to get between my legs, and I've got Rafi making me wait. I lay down on the bed with my legs just slightly parted. I wanted him to see the night set I was wearing. Smith had loved the way I looked in this set. Unfortunately, the whole thing had only taken about 10 minutes. We checked into the room. He had to make a couple business calls while I changed. After the thing, he just laid down next to me. Then he just looked up at me and asked me if I wanted to do it again. When I said, "Oh yeah, I can hardly wait," he didn't realize that I was being sarcastic. There was no foreplay, no touching. Rafi usually spends more time. I started imagining exactly what I wanted my husband to do to me. And I must have dozed off because the next thing I knew it was 3 a.m. and Rafi was already in bed beside me. The unusual thing was that normally, even if I went to bed first, when I awoke the next morning, Rafi would always be spooned up behind me. Even if we'd had one of our rare arguments, it was just how he slept. He used to say that we gravitated towards each other in the night. But not only was he not next to me, he was all the way on the other side of the bed, and he was facing away from me. I slowly rolled towards him and put my leg over his leg and hip, but he didn't react. I gently tapped him on the shoulder, no result. Finally, when I shook him awake, he yawned and asked me what I wanted. "Nothing, Rafi. Just go back to sleep," I said angrily. I'm not sure, but I think there was a hint of a smile on his lips, as he turned back away from me. This should have been a wake-up call for me that something, other than the things I had done, was wrong in my marriage, but I failed to see it. The next morning when I woke up to get ready for work, Rafi was already gone. For the first time that I could remember, he hadn't kissed me goodbye or said anything to me before he left. It was one of those things I could never cure him of. He always told me that if he got hurt or died, or I did, he didn't want us to go into the next life without having told me he loved me or kissed me one last time. Rafi was a puppy. He wasn't a complicated entity, so I never thought that he had any kind of plan or that anything was going on. But he had never refused or said no to S with me. I've heard that every man has times when he can't perform, and we are in our mid-20s now, so maybe last night he was just tired. But why was he sleeping away from me? I still needed Rafi in my life, and in my own way I loved him more than anyone else in the world. I knew I loved him far more than any feelings I had for Smith. But Smith was my ticket to the life I needed, and Rafi would never find out about him. Rafi, I got out of the house as early as I could. I was really worried that Kathy would want to have wake-up S. It was strange that I could go from totally enraptured to total revulsion in 24 hours, but here I was. Stranger still was the fact that emotionally, I still loved her so much and wanted for us to fix this. But the thought of having S with her, the thought of putting my anywhere near made me want to throw up. So I found myself driving over to the Home Depot near the apartment before the sun came up. It was open at 6 a.m. I ordered my materials from Contractor Supply and went to get coffee while my order was filled. I looked through their tool section and got new blades for my jigsaw and my circular saw. By the time I was done there, they were calling me to tell me that my order had been filled. I got receipts for all of the items to present to Smith for reimbursement, and then I drove to the site. As I pulled up in front of the apartment, I could swear the light was on the upper floor. I pulled into the driveway, and when I looked again it was off. Maybe I'd mistaken which unit was lit up. It didn't matter anyway since they were all dark now. The person that Smith was leasing the apartment for wasn't due to be there for a few weeks, so no one should be here now. I got the keys out and started unloading my materials. First I moved everything from my truck to the large living room area. Then using the sketches and measurements I'd taken the previous day, I divided the load up into smaller packages and moved each package into the room it was designed for. The remaining materials, for the outdoor deck, stayed in the living room. I'd probably do the deck last, and I didn't want my wood ruined if it rained.